We love our pets. And if you're anything like me, you'll know for a fact that they show us love back. But in the wild, some people have struck up some astonishing relationships with some truly magnificent creatures. We're going to meet the scientists,
Hey there.
keepers, and caregivers
Are you happy?
who have made it their business to bond with extraordinary animals. After years of getting up close, they've released their friends back to the wild. Now we're going to join them on an adventure
Very exciting, very exciting.
to see if those ties have stood the test of time. As human and animal are reunited in the wild. Ah, how could you not love that little face? But what's actually going on in there? Is he happy? Is she sad? When it comes to our furry friends' emotions, there's one question scientists continue to ask. How does an animal's ability to feel compare with our own? Our fascination with the relationships that we might be able to form with wild animals is obvious from the millions of people who watched this internet sensation. This is how the story went. At the height of the swinging 60s, a young Australian, John Rendell, and his friend Ace Bourke bought a small lion cub from the Harrods Pet Department. I suppose that's just what people did in those days.
From that first moment we saw him, it took very little time to fall completely under his spell. And he just was so charismatic.
John and Ace called him Christian, and the trio did everything together. Even holidays. But the little lion cub was growing up fast.
When we bought Christian, he was 35 pounds, this wonderful little real-life teddy bear, and within 6 months he was the size of a substantial Alsatian.
It was time to send Christian back to where he belonged.
Deciding to take Christian to Africa was a huge decision, but we thought, look, he's got to go for it.
That would have been the end of it. But a year later, John and Ace were anxious to find out how Christian was adapting to the wild. They returned to Kenya. And what happened next is a moment that's touched the hearts of over 100 million people.
Human reunions are always very, very emotional. The fact that it's a virtually wild animal showing that same excitement about reunion really has an impact. And the Whitney Houston soundtrack on it just topped it all off. I'm not surprised 100 million people have watched it.
It's not every day you get a hug from a lion. And it makes you wonder if other wild animals might have it in their hearts to love us back. Africa is home to some of the most iconic animals in the world, many of which can't be found in the wild anywhere else. From lone predators to mega herds that find safety in numbers. Critters here come in all shapes and sizes. But one of the largest and most well-known of Africa's animals is the elephant. A species, they say, never forgets. Especially an old friend. It's dawn at Kenya's David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust Nursery for Elephants.
Jambo, jambo, jambo.
The central heating's fired up, and it's time for some little ones to shake a leg. Their human caregivers haven't got far to commute. They sleep in the same room.
We need to be with them day and night. We need to keep them company because we are part of their family. So it's like having a newborn baby.
It's head keeper Edwin's job to give these babies the best possible chance of rejoining the wild herds. Every morning, after a short stroll to the forest, it's breakfast time. But feeding this lot is no picnic.
When the orphans come in the nursery, some of them come in very, very poor conditions. All the body is malnourished, they've not had food for a long time, they are emotionally stressed and traumatized.
These poor little pachyderms just need a jumbo-sized dose of TLC. But how can a human show love to an elephant? In the wild, it's thought that elephants talk to each other through the ground, using low-frequency rumblings that can travel up to 20 miles. Edwin and the keepers have found other ways to communicate with their orphans. Elephants identify people by their scent, so a quick blow in the trunk, they know who they're talking to. Oh, hello, what's your name? You can't be shy of getting a bit physical, too.
When they suck on your fingers, you just feel very relaxed and very affectionate.
After 16 years raising orphaned elephants, Edwin is sure that this loving is not a one-way street.
We do get love back from the elephants because we see how they react to us, wanting to sniff us everywhere, putting their tongue all around our body. So we see the love coming back from the elephants.
It's been another busy day for the orphans at Nairobi Nursery. But as the babies and their keepers get some well-earned rest, Edwin is gearing up for an emotional reunion. He's heading out into the vast, wild savannah to track down orphans who have graduated the nursery.
Very exciting. I just want to see how they're progressing.
But his old friends aren't babies anymore. Now they've grown up and joined the wild herds, will they still remember him? We have made friends with all sorts of weird and wonderful creatures on this planet. And most of us would say it was possible that animals can feel the way we feel. But science has actually been a bit slow to catch up. In the 1960s, one pioneering young primatologist found herself taking on the establishment.
When I went to Africa, I had no intention of becoming a scientist. I had no intention of getting a degree. I wanted to live with animals and write books about them.
At 26 years old, Jane Goodall arrived in the forests of Tanzania to study the behavior of one of our closest living relatives, the chimpanzee.
I found that it was really important to establish a trusting relationship with the chimpanzees when I first arrived, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to observe them. And I suppose they thought, well, she's clearly not as scary as we thought she was. As I got to know them, I gave them names, and then I began to describe the kind of behavior I saw. It was so clear when they were sad, when they were contented, when they were angry. They have emotions.
But when Jane reported her findings back to her university professors, she was met with ridicule.
When I got to Cambridge, I was told I'd done everything wrong. First of all, I should have given the chimpanzees numbers rather than names, because that was more scientific. Secondly, I couldn't talk about them having personalities, and certainly not emotions, because those were unique to the human animal. For all their scientific know-how, I knew that the professors were actually wrong. You cannot have an animal companion, share your life in a meaningful way with a dog, a cat, I don't care what it is, and not know that they have personalities, minds, and feelings.
Jane moves in closer and observes a chimp con man at work.
Once you get to understand how like us chimpanzees are, they prove there isn't a sharp line between them and us. Once people realize animals are more like us in these ways than science gave them credit for, then we begin to think a little more carefully about how we use and abuse so many animals in our daily lives.
Since Jane began her work, the chimpanzee population has dropped from millions to just a few 100,000. She has dedicated her life to our endangered relatives, rescuing orphaned chimps and sending them back into the wild. One chimp who was taken ill 4 years ago seemed to give Jane a very fitting thank you for saving her life.
When I met Wunda for the very first time, she'd been very sick, and I met her when she'd recovered from her sickness, and it was decided to release her onto this beautiful Chinzula Island. It was very exciting.
In 2013, Wunda was finally ready for a life back in the wild, in the forests of the Republic of Congo.
So I was kind of talking to her through the bars and trying to reassure her. Then, when we opened the bars of the cage, this extraordinary thing happened. It wasn't just a quick embrace. It was unbelievably moving.
3 years on, Wunda still lives a healthy life on Chinzula Island, thanks to a very special human friend. Back in Kenya, head keeper Edwin Lusichi has devoted his life to nursing his orphan elephants and returning them to the wild. Now, as another bunch of graduates prepare for a new life on the savannah, Edwin is going to take this chance to catch up with some old friends. One elephant he hasn't seen in over a year is Naipoki. In 2009, at just 3 months old, she was abandoned by her herd. Unable to feed herself, she was in desperate need of help.
It was sad, it was painful, and I concentrated a lot in just making sure that she's okay.
Day and night, Edwin nursed her back to health, and before long, Naipoki's personality began to shine through.
She was one of my favorites when she was in the nursery. So friendly, very playful. All these characters are expected in elephants, and they do apply in human beings as well. Not all our children are of the same character, and so we should expect the same with the elephants.
Edwin has travelled 250 miles south of the sanctuary to Tsavo East National Park, where Naipoki and the other orphans have been introduced to the wild herds. This will be the first time he's seen his babies in a long while.
I want to see how they're doing. Being reunited with the elephants, it is like meeting an old, long-time friend or meeting an old, long-time family. That excitement is what I'm here for.
But they're not babies anymore. A fully grown elephant can weigh up to 6 tons. And they are unpredictable. Edwin has spent most of his life working with them, and even he has no idea how they'll react. But then...
Hello, Naipoki. Hello, Naipoki. How are you doing, Lepoki? How are you? Do you remember me? It's good. You can see you have big tasks now, becoming a big girl.
They've been apart for over a year.
I hope you're fine. You're happy you see me. I'm happy to see you. Lepoki. Oh, don't put my head in your mouth. Don't put my head in your mouth. Hey, my baby. Hey, my baby.
But then an older female threatens to break up the party.
Lepoki, go away. Lepoki, don't. Come on, Lepoki. Lepoki.
It's another of Edwin's orphans, Lempote. Ten years ago, she was rescued from the roadside. She'd lost her mother when she was just 2 weeks old.
Lempote, when she came in the nursery, she was still too young. She had a lot of difficulties. She lost a lot of condition. She lost appetite for food. Very weak, very sick. She was a very, very cheeky elephant from the beginning. Very, very cheeky and sometimes very naughty.
Clearly, she hasn't lost that naughty streak.
You remember me now?
And it looks like she's jealous, too.
You want me to be with you? No, you don't need to push.
She wants to show Edwin a bit of love herself.
You don't want to be with you? I can see you remembered. You're big, 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 big. I just feel so happy to be in the middle of all these elephants, all with their trunk around me, touching and smelling. It's a sign that they remembered me. Elephants do have emotions, just like we human beings. Elephants will grieve, elephants will mourn, elephants are excited, are happy, are jealousy, just like we human beings. Here she comes. Come on, Lepoki, come. You want to say hi again? I remember you too. I remember you too. Realizing that she remembered me tells that I need to come more often, because she was not happy that I've stayed away for a long time. It is a big, big part of my family reunion, and I'm happy to be reunited with them after some long time.
Elephants aren't the only iconic species we've struck up amazing relationships with in the natural world. Fancy hanging out with a hippo? Or having tea with a tiger in your living room? I told you, you're not allowed on the couch. Oh, all right then. Or what about being born and raised the son of a zookeeper? And growing up with a gorilla? Damien Aspinall had what could only be described as an unconventional childhood in Howlett's Wild Animal Park, Kent.
I was drawn to many animals, but gorillas are so human-like. You develop trust with a gorilla the same way you develop trust with a human. You show it kindness, you show it love, you treat it as an equal.
One baby gorilla Damien became close to at the zoo was Queeby.
First time I would have met Queeby, he would have been a tiny little baby. I had a good bond with Queeby. He was a sweet-natured gorilla, and that's half the battle.
The intention was always to give Queeby a life in the wild. And when he was 5 years old, he was sent to the jungles of Africa.
Taking Queeby back, or any gorillas back, is a joy. We have really no right to keep them in captivity.
Queeby had been living as a wild gorilla in Gabon for over 5 years. Then Damien got reports that Queeby had become aggressive. He went to track his old buddy down and find out what was going on.
I went up and down the river calling Queeby.
Come on, then. Come on!
Just as I was about to give up, he appeared.
Now, Damien had to approach a wild and dangerous gorilla.
Boss,
throw food if it kicks off. I was apprehensive. I honestly didn't know how Quibi was going to react. The hour I spent with Quibi, he was next to me the whole time. All his mannerisms and vocalizations was one of someone so happy to see his old friend.
What an incredible relationship. One that spanned 12 years and 3,500 miles from a zoo in Kent to the jungles of Gabon.
It was lovely to see that. Our bond was so strong, and it was all rather beautiful.
Quibi had even brought his new wives to show off to his old dad. And now Damien had returned, he wouldn't let him out of his sight.
I got back into the boat and went back to camp for 3 or 4 miles back to camp. And I went for a swim in the morning. There he was, at the edge of the riverbank, coming to see his old friend.
Quibi, he's a lovely boy. I can see you.
Humans are often surprised by how much emotional capacity animals have. Jealousy, love, anger, everything that we feel, they feel.
Now, how would you feel to be reunited with a chimpanzee that you'd brought up like your own? Or to be mobbed by a litter of wild cheetah cubs?
He's climbing all over me.
Up next, we take a look at some more amazing relationships with truly wild and sometimes deadly animals. We all love a bit of a cuddle, but few hugs can have been quite as gratifying or as poignant as the one Jane Goodall received from Woonda when Jane released her into the wild. This is the sanctuary where Woonda grew up. There are currently over 150 orphans being raised here, and they're all in desperate need of one thing: a mother's love.
The orphan chimpanzees that come to our sanctuaries, they've been traumatized, they've lost their mothers, they're very often wounded. It's absolutely essential that they do see their caregiver as a sort of surrogate mother.
Ale! Ale, ale, ale!
Vet Dr. Rebecca Atencia and her team of caregivers do everything they can to nurture these little darlings and prepare them for a life back in the wild.
This morning are just great to see how they go to the forest, they just walk through the savannah with us, playing and playing.
After a quick milk breakfast in the forest, it's playtime.
They need to enjoy, they need to just be babies like they are now.
Chimpanzees share 98% of their DNA with humans. Their brains are very similar to ours. And just like us, one of the best ways to learn is through play. These little ones don't just need food and a safe place to learn. There's one thing they're missing more than anything.
At that time of their life, their mother is the center of their life. It's everything for them.
One chimp Rebecca was a surrogate mother to arrived at the sanctuary 9 years ago. She'd lost her parents to poachers and was severely malnourished.
She had a lost look on her eyes. She was confused. We give her a big mango. She was eating and eating, eating, and no stop eating. Kudia, it means to eat in local language. And we said, okay, we know already her name, Kudia.
Rebecca raised Kudia like her own, and for 7 years, along with her cameraman husband, Fernando, she watched her baby grow from strength to strength Soon it was time to send her back into the wild.
I was happy for her, but I was afraid of what is going to happen to her. At the end, they are like your children. They are part of your life.
Now, 3 years on, vet Rebecca is setting off on a journey deep into the heart of the Congo. She's going to give Kudia's troop a health check and find out how her baby is adapting to a life in the wild.
Today is an exciting day. Today is the first day that I'm going to see Kudia face to face after years.
But how will Kudia feel to see her adoptive mum again? Some wild animals live in packs or communities and are used to building relationships. But others live a more solitary life. Black rhinos, leopards and aardvarks are just a few of the animals that would rather go it alone than be part of a crowd. And if they don't want to hang out with each other, they're even less likely to want to spend time with us. Perhaps the most elusive of all wild animals, and certainly one of the hardest to catch up with, is the cheetah. In Zimbabwe, maverick wildlife filmmaker Kim Woliter has managed to get closer than anyone to some extraordinary wild behaviour. And yes, he does it barefoot.
I'm right there, seeing it from a perspective that nobody else has ever seen before. And I'm able to film it in a way that people can now actually feel what it's like to be a cheetah, like right in there.
To get these amazing shots, Kim had to do what everyone else thought impossible. He had to gain the trust of a wild cheetah.
Trust is crucial to any bond you want to develop with these guys. Unless you can get their trust, you won't do anything. And to build that trust takes time.
Kim tracked one female cheetah by car and on foot for 2 years. An unusual courtship, you might say. But his persistence paid off.
The more and more I saw of her, she just became more and more accepting, and I was able to start developing a relationship with her.
No one had ever filmed this close to a wild cheetah before. And when she gave birth to her litter, she even let him film her cubs.
If it wasn't for the mother, there's no ways I'd be allowed this close to these little guys here.
Then, incredibly for an animal that lives alone in the wild, far from other cheetahs, let alone humans, she allowed Kim even closer.
I'm going to get out now and see how they react.
This one little cub crawled between my legs onto my stomach, just like I was a log or something. He's climbing all over me. Why? And it was amazing. This is a totally wild cheetah. I just thought it was incredible. Why did she let me do that? It was insane. It was incredibly special. That's the reason why I do what I do. It's those special moments.
Back in the Republic of Congo, Dr. Rebecca Atencia is hoping for a special moment of her own. As a vet, she wants to check her orphan chimpanzee Kudia is healthy after 3 years in the wild. As an adoptive mum, she just wants to see her baby again.
When you are in the life of somebody for so many years, you have this connection, and she's part of my life, you know, part of my family.
Kudia is here somewhere. But she's not alone. The Congo rivers and forest can be deadly. There are 20 other chimps on Kudia's island. And the older males in particular can be aggressive.
It is very possible that a chimpanzee in a specific situation can kill somebody in question of minutes. Okay, we need to get ready and we'll go to the chimps.
From here on, Fernando, Rebecca's husband, who knows the chimps, will take over the filming.
Fernando, we are going down to try to check if Kudia is here. We will see what's happening.
Very exciting, very exciting.
Okay, we are close. Okay, approach about doucement, et on va descendre, eh? Va. Seguro que está llegando ya. I'm nervous. I don't know what she's going to do. How she's going to show that she knows me. Kudia? Kudia! These bones that we established when she was young, still there or not? I don't know what is going to happen, and it's like a mystery. Ale, ale, ale! Kudia! Ale, ale, ale!
Finally, there's a clue that the group are close.
Baobab, they love this. They eat the inside, and they leave this.
Sure enough, there's movement up in the tree canopy. And then a familiar face.
Kudia!
Ha crecido un montón. Qué bonito.
It's a cautious first encounter. After 3 years in the wild, has Kudia moved on from her adoptive mum?
Déjame verte. ¿Qué pasa? Sube.
Como antiguamente, ¿eh?
Tranquila.
Mira que le gustaba hacer eso cuando era pequeña.
Ya está, Kudia. Tenemos un bebé. Oh. A ver, tranquila. Vamos, ¿eh? Venga, vamos. Ya está. Venga, vamos. Uy. Vamos.
In her gentle way, Kudia seems to be accepting Rebecca's return.
Kudia, ¿qué pasa? What's happening with you? You're going to take care of things?
And once they settle, acceptance turns to unmistakable affection.
It's so natural the way that she's just putting her hand on my shoulder. She's just touching my skin, and she's so sweet in the way that she does that. She's trying to show me that she has love. When you live with chimpanzees and you are part of their family, you start to see how close they are to us and how close we are to them. Amazing. I I can say to any scientist, when we say that animals, they cannot feel, that's not the reality. They have feelings. They feel anger, they feel jealousy, they feel love. Bye, Kudia.
On the other side of the world, the USA is full of animals that most people try to avoid. From rattlesnakes to coyotes and cougars, this vast country is home to many wild species that can make you run from your picnic. And in the north woods of Minnesota, one animal in particular has a fierce reputation: the black bear. There are roughly 20,000 of them roaming the state, and with large males standing as tall as 2 meters, people are terrified of running into them.
They're unpredictable, period.
I hunt them with a bow. 300-pound bear, they can definitely inflict a lot of damage, if not kill you.
If you had to encounter a bear, get out of the woods. Run. Run fast.
One man who has spent his life studying the black bear in the North Woods believes they've been misunderstood.
The cub weighs 5 pounds, which means it should do very well after it leaves the den.
Biologist Dr. Lynn Rogers thinks it's high time we changed our relationship with one of North America's most feared wild animals.
Many people are just terrified of bears. They still read the hunting magazines, they still see the government warnings. It's a major thing to overcome that fear.
Lynn has built up the largest study of black bear behavior in the world, and he thinks they have complex emotions and are far from mindless killers.
In my 48 years of pushing the envelopes with bears, I've never had one come after me and hurt me.
In fact, to get close enough to study his bears, Lynn had to strike up a relationship of mutual trust.
You do get attached to these animals. There's scientific data that we're collecting, but to develop the true trust, you have to be sensitive to that animal. It's a relationship, not as a friend, not as an enemy, and not as a significant food giver. The relationship is the bear learns to ignore you, go about its life. If you're there, you're inconsequential. Sometimes it's nice to be ignored.
To get a bear to trust you to the point that it ignores you, Lynn realized he had to bond with it from a very early age. One cub he met just weeks after she was born was Ursula.
Do you like snuggling in here? I've known Ursula for 10 years. I could pick her up. She was calm about it. I could put her to my nose. We could touch noses, breathe back and forth. And she totally trusted me. And so she knew that the scent of me meant good things.
Ursula grew up as a wild bear. Lynn didn't even see her again for 2 years, but she never forgot that bond from the den.
And one day she came here, and I saw the rich golden color on her muzzle, the eyebrow patches, and I thought, wow, this is Ursula. This is beautiful Ursula. And immediately she was just calm as you could be, about as calm as a wild bear could be. She totally trusted me, and she became one of our best research bears.
For 8 years, Ursula allowed Lynn into her life. But now she's gone missing again. And not everyone is so friendly to the bears of the North Woods. Over 1,500 are killed by hunters every year.
The bears that trust me are precious to me. As it gets close to the hunting season and I see a bear that I know, I have the feeling each time this could be the last time.
It's approaching bear hunting season in the north woods of Minnesota. And Ursula, one of Dr. Lynn Rogers' favourite research bears, hasn't returned to his cabin.
Hey, do you have a bear there?
But a local resident has some news.
Hey, we got a mother with 2 cubs over here.
The mother with 2 cubs?
Yeah, maybe you want to come over and take a look.
All right, we're on our way.
Lynn has no time to lose. Wild bears don't hang around near people's houses for long.
We'll see what we find. Hey, Bear. It's me, Bear. Hey, Bear.
Lynn knows those markings. This is Ursula.
You've got cubs with you.
But as her cubs flee to safety, she's wary.
It's me. Don't worry.
This is a wild bear, protective of her family.
It's me, Bear. You're okay.
Lynn adopts a submissive position.
Good, Bear. Ursula, it's really, really good to see you. You're really hungry, aren't you? There, take that. But you feel comfortable here. Good, Bear. The way you just nuzzled my nose, it reminds me of when you were a little cub.
Seeing that Lynn poses no threat, Ursula's cubs dare to move closer. Then, in an incredible display of trust, Ursula moves away, content to leave her cubs with Lynn.
It just gives me a quiet joy. The main thing that I feel when I'm with these bears is privileged.
After a few precious moments, Ursula collects her cubs and they disappear back into the forest.
I was perfectly comfortable. She was too. As soon as she knew it was me. She cares nothing for me beyond the food, but she trusts me. If bears were like most people think, I couldn't do what I do. And there they go.
Whether it's a bond of trust with a wild animal, or an even stronger relationship with one raised in captivity, some people have had the privilege of getting up close and personal with some truly magnificent creatures.
We absolutely loved Christian, but he loved us back. There was no doubt about that.
All these emotions that can be found in people are in elephants, and I have seen them.
As we realize it is possible to have such moving encounters, perhaps we'll begin to learn more about the emotional lives of the animals with whom we share our planet.
I think it's tremendously important that everyone should understand that of course animals have personalities and of course they have emotions, and that many of them are way more intelligent than they used to be given credit for.
People are amazed that they're so emotional, that they have this ability to love. But if you know anything about these animals, that's not surprising at all.